Hey everybody, welcome to the Houseplant Coach. This is Veronica with Oh Happy Plants, and my voice might sound weird right now because I haven't talked at all yet this morning, and I'm trying to chug my first cup of coffee. But I just wanted to tell you that I repotted my avocado yesterday, and if there's a plant that you've heard or have experience with killing one during a repot, more on that later, that you've heard is like really a bitch to repot and dies often and all of that. And it's like freaking precious to you because you planted it when your kid was, how old was he? 2.5? And you've had it ever since. You planted it together with your child and he's 13 now. So I've got this 10-year-old avocado tree, right? And we planted it. We sprouted it, and then we put it in this pot, and I got a nice pot for it. And this is back when my silly ass was direct planting things. No shame if you do this still. I actually just repotted a bunch of houseplants. Excuse me. And I do have a couple of them direct planted. Like this begonia right next to me is direct planted in terracotta because I just find that this particular one likes that better. Anyway, this pot is round. It's smaller at the top than it is in the middle. And also, there was an avocado. My old job, I used to go around and take care of plants in offices and lobbies and stuff. And there was this big... Where was it? It wasn't one of my normal accounts. It was somebody else's account, but she needed help with stuff. Or maybe I was covering for a long vacation or something. But yeah, so I think she needed some help. And so I went and helped with this giant replanting of this big built-in indoor planter at this hospital. And somebody had been eating their lunch there and had thrown an avocado pit into the planter, and it sprouted. And the person in the facilities office who was in charge of making sure the shit got done, building manager or whatever, I don't know. Anyway, she wanted the avocado tree to take home because we were going to put a bunch of other stuff in there. It was super overgrown with tropicals and stuff, but she was like, yeah, I want this avocado tree to take home. And so we take it out, and because it was a deep planter, the root just kept going down, and we were as careful as we could be, but there wasn't a lot of fibrous root to hold any of the root ball. And we actually ended up having to cut the root because it had kind of a tap root, which is, if you're not familiar, a carrot is a tap root. It's a root that goes straight down. A carrot just happens to be an extra chubby tap root that we like to eat. But I might be wrong about that, in terms of technicalities, but a taproot is a long, straight root that goes down into the ground. Some trees have taproots, some trees have spread out kind of webby root system. The trees with taproots are the ones that are less likely to fall over in a rainstorm, and less likely to fuck up your house's foundation because they don't grow along the surface of the soil. They, essentially they're trying to get down, and they're also less likely to die in a drought because they go down into the water table instead of, instead of growing along trying to soak up water from the surface of the soil. Sorry, I'm tangenting this morning and I'm not fast enough to keep up with myself. My brain is not awake yet. Anyway, so avocado trees, this plant, when we took it out of there, all of the soil fell off of the root ball. And so we were oh gosh, and we potted it up as fast as we could. And, we were as gentle as we could be, but it didn't have any fibrous roots barely at all. And all the soil fell off the root ball, and we're what the hell do we do, And then the whole thing wilted, just pure shock. And I'm sure all the leaves fell off after that. I don't know if it stayed alive. Avocado trees are pretty fucking sturdy, but they're also really, really thirsty. So, if you've ever repotted I mean, what are some of our thirstiest plants? Like calatheas, but I feel like they do a little better because they often have thick roots that store water. So if you've watered them right before a repot and they're fully hydrated, then you can repot them and they have enough to get them through while they grow the root hairs back into the soil. Oh, that's another good tip. Water your shit before you repot it. Because if it's totally dehydrated and you're doing a repot, then you're disrupting all of its little root hairs and potentially breaking them off. And if they don't have root hairs, they can't take up water. And so then it's going to take them growing those back, which takes energy. It takes photosynthesis. It takes the plant either killing a leaf to take the water or wilting a bunch to use some of the water from all of its cells and then growing those root hairs. And so if your plant is dehydrated at the outset of your repot, then it's going to recover less quickly. Where was I at? Water your shit. So anyway, this plant, we gave it to this woman and all of the leaves were droopy and wilted and it was in this pot and I was just like, God, it looks terrible. And she was like, I don't think she was especially upset, but it's like it couldn't be helped, you know? Like it just happened. None of the soil clump stuck to the plant. When we took it out, we were careful. We had a shovel. We, scooped up soil and we tried to put it in the pot and it all just fell off. And so I have this avocado tree in this pot, this round pot that I'm like, oh, it's going to be a bitch to get out of the pot. I'm going to have to use a sledgehammer on the pot. I was fully prepared to smash this pot in half. It was a really heavy stoneware pot, really a nice one. I think it was actually the first nice pot that I bought myself. That wasn't from like a super cheap discount store. I was like, I'm going to get this avocado tree that Silas and I planted together. I'm going to get it its own nice pot. And I spent like $30 on it at a time when $30 for me for a plant pot was a whole lot of money. And remember, this was $30 in like, what year would it have been? 2013? $13 when I was earning like, more than a minimum wage, and minimum wage was $7 an hour. And I was scraping together as a newly single mom with a shit job at an apartment complex. So it was a lot of money, That's like a giant box of diapers or whatever the hell. I think Silas was out of diapers by then. But anyways, we used cloth too, like 60% of the time. But once you're a single mom, do you have time to wash cloth diapers? Not that often. Anyway, so we plant this avocado tree. Sorry, this morning's story time. I'm going to preface this with a warning that my brain is not even... Oh, there's coffee right next to me. Hang on. Chug that. Okay. So we plant this avocado tree. He's so cute about it. He takes my little watering can. So I got this watering can. All those cutesy watering cans that are everywhere and they're like $80 for the pretty metal ones? I found one at a flea market down like, what is it? Highway 12 that goes out from I-5 out east to some rando towns out there, like the teeny tiny little towns down south of Olympia. With my college boyfriend, I found this tiny little, it's like a 1.5 quart watering can. It's round. It's I think it's bronze and like solid metal. And it's like your little mid-century style watering can. It's really cute. And it's actually an antique instead of all these new ones that are like, oh, look, it's so fancy and we're going to sell it for $1 million. This was $5 at a flea market. And I've had it ever since. And it was the perfect size for tiny little chubby fingers to help water his avocado tree when we had it out on the porch through the summer. I think it was just that first year we had it outside. But then it lived right in our big slider window, and then when we moved to the new place, which is now our old place, the first house that we got for ourselves, tiny, tiny little house. It lived right in the front window, and it got taller than the ceiling, and Silas was thrilled by that. When it got taller than him, he was so excited. And then it just stayed taller than him. And then when it got taller than me, he was once again excited. I think he was maybe 5 or 6 when that happened. But anyway, cute little avocado tree. So of course I don't want to kill it. So after this one experience with this avocado tree and repotting it, like, I was just scared. So if you're scared of repotting a plant or any fucking plant project, so number one, I'm going to be putting out more information on pruning at some point here. I think it's probably going to have to be in conjunction with the house plant tours. TM. I'm going to be doing some local house plant tours, sort of like, let me come to your house and go through and give you whatever plant advice. I'll make it into a million different videos for like YouTube or whatever. I don't think... I mean, we could potentially pull the audio and put it on a podcast, but I think it will be more conducive to video, so we probably won't do that. But I'm going to be doing that coming up here, hopefully this fall. Hopefully I'll have time for that. I'm going to start writing my first book. And by my first, I mean, I have like 4 that I've been taking notes for a fucking while. One of them's going to be fiction. It's going to be like, it's going to be freaking weird. And I don't know if it's going to work. It's going to be based on a lot of my dreams, because I have some really weird dreams, like Peter Dinklage zombie hunter featured in one of my dreams. Why, brain? Why? What happened? Oh my God. Okay, so let me just tell you about the ridiculousness of widowhood. So I don't think I've told you guys about this dream yet. And we are way off topic at this point, but I'm just going to go with it. So I had this dream. And it was actually a really meaningful dream for a number of different reasons. But I'm not going to go into the whole thing. There was just this one scene. So we're on this kind of like, it's kind of like a spit of land, but there were houses built on it. And it felt very much like, you know, this is not the place you want to be if a tsunami hits, sort of situation. But there were houses built on this spit of land. And there was this pack of wild dogs that came from the woods that were back on the, you know, on the main land where the spit came out from. And like this pack of dogs, it was like real nasty dogs, and they were coming at me, and Sean was there, and this is after he died, and he was a zombie, so he was like half rotten. Oh, by the way, this is gross, so like skip ahead 3 minutes or something if you don't like gross things. So zombie Sean and I are there, and there's this pack of like, I mean, it's not wild dogs. I think, you know, just like feral dogs. Some of them seem to be wolfy and some of them seem to just be dogs. And they were all very, very like, I'm going to eat you. And so he was like, hold on, I'll distract him. You run into the house. And so, you know, that thing in dreams where, you know, yourself is running into the house, like the person that you are, but there's still like a camera outside so you can tell what's going on out there. So in the dream, I run into the house. And he gives the dogs his foot, and they run off with it. And then he hops into the house, like zombie hopping, you know, the most ridiculous thing. Like I can still see it in my head. And then I wake up from this dream and I'm like, oh, I was like, so like, oh my goodness, he was protecting me. Like, what the fuck? So anyway, I don't know what's going on in my subconscious sometimes, but it's working it out, I guess. I don't know. Anyway, so apparently zombies can be sweet too. Now we know this. He had no foot anymore. It was so weird. Okay, it's been 3 minutes. We're going to start talking about plants again. So this avocado tree, I was scared to repot it. My adorable little curly blonde-headed kid, he had blonde hair. I had blonde hair when I was little. Like, I don't know if you've ever seen pictures of me or anything like that, podcast listeners. Hi. But I was blonde. I was like completely toe-headed when I was little. And I can't remember. I had probably medium brown hair by the time I was 6 or 7. And Silas kind of went the same trajectory. And I think his dad did too. But anyway, so this adorable child and I are planting this tree. And so I'm very attached to this tree. And then I have this experience with this other one that's just like, it looked like it was going kaput. It probably dropped all of its leaves just out of shock. And then it may have regrown them. Like, since then, I have learned that you can hack the top off of an avocado tree and it'll be like, bitch, please, and start putting out branches. So, it's not like they're totally not sturdy. But they do drink a lot, so disrupting the root system kind of scared me. And there's a warning on the thirst trap soil that I developed for avocados and other super thirsty guys. That one Geognathus ciliatus, I don't know if I'm saying that right. The plant that got really popular, I don't see it anymore, but it was super popular about 2 years ago. And, 2 years ago, 2.5 years ago. That's so weird. My brain is like, oh yeah, that was when Sean was still alive. Like, it's a whole different lifetime now. It's so strange. But it was super popular and it's so thirsty. Like, if you repot that shit, make sure you do it really gently. Make sure you like soak it in water to get the old soil off and then pack it with new soil. Like, not like, don't be rough with it, but make sure that new soil holds a shit ton of water. Otherwise, you're going to be watering that sucker like every fucking day. I don't have time for that. Anyway, so with this avocado, I was super scared, but I did it successfully. It is happy today. It's actually like it was starting to droop a little bit because I hadn't watered it. I hadn't caught the watering in time. So I watered it well right before repotting, and I gave it like, an hour or so to soak up water, and it had started to perk up a little bit. But then I was like, you know what? I just want to get this project done because I have been repotting all of my houseplants. Every single freaking one of them, because I'm like, let me just get it done before the sun goes away and they hate life, even though most of them have grow lights all winter. So like, just FYI, my plants are spoiled. Oh, I'm getting finally, for the first time, I'm doing something to really baby some houseplants. I don't have any, there's one plant that's in a cloche. But I don't like cloches because they're too small, or if they're huge, then they're really unwieldy because they're glass and you have to lift the top off. I don't want that shit in my house because I will break it. So I have one in a cloche. It's Amphioxus begonia. I think no, it's not one of those. It's, the little lacy kind. It's like a ferny looking begonia. I'm forgetting what type it is. I know the name of this plant, but again, I need to chug my coffee. Anyway, so I'm getting one of those vivarium sort of, people use them for paludariums for like frogs. I think a paludarium is one that has like water in the bottom for frogs, right? But anyway, so I'm getting one of these tanks that has like the doors that open in the front, because I don't want to be climbing a ladder and reaching down into this thing. It's 3 feet tall. So these orchids are going to have space to grow, because I have some orchids and they're currently kind of pissed off at me. And some of them were pissed off when I bought them, even though I was like, they're really beautiful. But like by pissed, I just mean a little bit like the bulbs were dehydrated. So I'm starting to get into different types of orchids. I've always had phals since I started my old job. Because Phalaenopsis orchids, that's like, it's the grocery store one, the one you see everywhere with the long branch of blooms. But now I have oncidiums. I don't know if I have any cymbidiums. I have a something else and another thing and the other one and a little tiny weird guy that looks like an octopus. I don't know what he's called. So anyway, I'm over here like, oh my God, I'm getting serious about, like, I'm a real plant lady now. I'm actually getting an enclosure for my houseplants. So by the way, if you're one of these people out there who feels like, oh, I don't have a humidity cabinet, so that means I'm not very serious. Guess what? Join the club. That's been me all my life. And I think that most people think that I'm a plant lady and have, I mean, honestly, people have thought that I was a plant lady since I was in college because I had a jungle in my 8x10 dorm room. Like you walk in and you have to duck because there's leaves in your face. So yeah, you're a plant lady or person or man or daddy or sorry, I can't say that with a straight face. Or or whatever, or parent, or let's throw some gender neutral in there too, like person. I mean, I'm just not going to go there. Anyway, I'm going to stop with that. So, yeah, you're no less serious a plant person than the person who has like 8 glass cases in their house and spends 20 hours on them every day. That would be impossible. Anyways, so I'm getting this thing. I'm very excited. I'm going to put my shingling Hoya and Discidia in there because they're really freaking cute. And where they're at, my Discidia is blooming. I think I told you guys about it already, but it looks like fish lips is what it reminds me of. It's so funny. I forget. Is there a Discidia imbricata? I don't know. I know it's Hoya imbricata, but the Discidia that shingles up a wall, it's like kind of light green. I like the Hoya better because it's speckly and darker green. I just really like Hoyas. I've never been a fan of Discidias, but with these ones, I was like, oh, they shingle. I'm going to grow them. But of course, the way they were sold to me, they're not like flat. They were planted in pots. I don't know why the fuck people do this when it's just as easy. Oh, by the way, I'm going to have a new product soon. It's just as easy to put them on a tree fern fiber board and grow them that way. Like you can just... So I will, as I build this shit, and by shit, I mean this tank thing. As I set it up, I will show you guys pictures, videos, what the fuck ever. Maybe I'll do a sped up big long video of it or something. Maybe I'll film the whole setup. I'll have to be organized if I do that though. We'll see. I'll definitely take pictures. And I'll show you guys what I'm using. And I'm going to have these tree fern fiber boards that are really great for epiphytic orchids, for epiphytic... Oh! My staghorny guys can go in there. I have some little baby staghorns too. They can all go in there. They'll be cute. My big guy can go in there. He'll love it. Oh my goodness. I've had that fern since, I don't know, years. I had it for multiple years at my old place, so probably since like 2017 or something. And it's not that big because it's been neglected. Anyways, moving on. I gave it really nice fertilizer yesterday, so... So I'm going to have these tree fern fiber boards. So they're like the tree fern fiber poles that I have available in the online store, which I'm about to run out of. So if those are showing as not available, I'm going to order a bunch more pretty soon here. And I think I need to order some more tree fern fiber. So if you're in the Tacoma area or around here specifically, the tree fern fiber that I have in a 10-gallon box is going to be the cheapest option that you have available. I think my pricing is better. Like I specifically was like, I'm not going to mark this up to the degree that I could. I think my pricing is better than Amazon, especially if you pick it up in person. So if you're local and you need tree fern fiber, hit me up because I will sell you a whole fucking bag of that shit. And it is such a glorious substrate to work with. I might use that exclusively in my in my thing. Probably not. We'll see. Anyway, I think I'm going to do some kind of a wiki sort of a thing. But, so I'm going to use these tree fern boards. So I think they're like a 1/4 or a 1/2 inch thick. There may be some that are like an inch thick too. And essentially, because it's so absorbent, but so like loose textured, it's like the trunk of a tree, basically. And, so it's like, it's this, I don't know, I think they sell them in like 6x12 or 12x12 different sizes. And so I'll have those available probably within the next month or so. I have to make an order from them. And I don't know if I'm going to order a pallet of material or or just like a few boxes or something like that. But yeah, they're really cool because it's tree fern fiber that's all stuck together like in those poles, but it's like a board. So it's like a wall. You can use it to attach to the wall of your setup, and then you can just grow plants up it, like those shingling plants and stuff like that. Okay, back to the avocado tree. Chimney Christmas. More coffee. Hang on, pausing. Okay, we're back. I chugged the rest of my cup of coffee. It's not going to kick in right away, so I don't know why I did that. But anyways, the avocado tree is doing great this morning. So let me tell you what I did. I feel like I should tell everybody at the beginning of this episode to just skip to 26:30. So this plant, it was interesting. So I noticed that it does have a taproot that curled around in the bottom of the pot. But one of the things that it did was stay above where it was like super wet soil down in the bottom. Which I don't know if that was because I had it in a smaller pot before when it was first growing. It may be because of that, but the root system didn't, like, I assumed that the root system would take up the entire pot, and it did not. The majority of the fibrous roots were on the surface, which was really interesting. It was not the same experience, but it did have a taproot curling around down in there. I'm wondering if when I watered it, the water would soak into those roots at the top and just be sucked up by the plant right away. And I wonder if I wasn't watering heavily enough. I'm also wondering if potentially the water was soaking down to the bottom and the plant wanted to keep its roots up out of the water. Because sometimes you'll notice, like, monsteras will grow their roots through the whole soil. You know, it'll pack that shit with roots. It'll pack the whole pot, and then they'll start coming out the bottom if, especially if you're using a peat-based soil that pulls away from the sides and starts repelling water, then all the water goes down into your saucer, and then the roots are going to go down there to find it. Dracaenas will send their taproot to the bottom because a Dracaena is actually they're full-grown trees. They come from Africa. It's a fucking tree. They call them dragon tree for a reason, because they're an actual tree. The thing that you bought from the store that's 5 feet tall and looks like a stump in a pot is actually a branch of a larger tree that they cut off and rooted up. The little tiny ones that are like a little woody stem in a pot, those are tiny branches from a full-grown, 40-foot tall tree. So just so you're aware, that's what that's doing. So the taproot on those is, it's orange usually, and it's really cool looking. If you've never repotted a Dracaena, go do it. Go get one just to repot. No, just kidding. They're really cool, but they curl their taproot around the bottom of the pot. And that's why it's important to have the right texture of soil that holds some moisture but has a lot of aeration too, because they have that taproot and they need the water to be able to filter down through the soil without rotting the trunk to get down to where the roots are going to be. And this is another piece of all of my nonsense with these different dirts. Like, some people are like, does it really matter? This is too much work. And I'm like, yeah, you can use the same soil for every single plant, but it's not necessarily going to do the best job for every single plant. Though, let me just say, if you adapt your care to the plant, and, if you're I think I mentioned this on a previous podcast, even in the last 2 weeks. If you have a Sansevieria and you have a money tree and you put them in the same soil, which I just did yesterday, by the way, you can do that. You're just going to need to water the money tree like 5 times as often as the Sansevieria, or put the Sansevieria in the brightest, hottest location you have. But the money tree wants to be there too. So again, just water the money tree 5 times as often. Anyway, so where was I at? Root systems. So the avocado had like a mat of fibrous roots at the top of the pot. There was like no soil that I could get. Sorry, I've got an alarm going off. I need to do a thing, so I can't kill it right now. I just have to snooze it. But anyway, so what I do with these plants to do the minimal impact possible is I go outside with my hose, and luckily this plant, for some reason, I could get it out of the pot. I just kind of squidged it around. Like I got my fingers in around the edge, and I got the soil off of the edge of the root ball, and then I was able to pull it out of the top of the pot and then just clean the pot out, which was great. I didn't have to break it or anything, which surprised me because that plant has been in that same pot since 2013, probably. So, Jesus Christ. Really? Maybe 2014. Maybe it took some time in a different pot to get that big. But anyway, it's been 10 years, So then the other piece of this, if you have not repotted a plant for ages, for whatever reason, if you're scared, if you're lazy, we don't use the word lazy here though. If you have executive dysfunction, which is not your fault, if you have been putting it off because you just don't want to, or if you just have forgotten about it and you're like, I fertilize, whatever, it seems happy, that's fine, number one. And number two, if you're feeling guilty about it, cut it out because I'm the plant lady and I'm the dirt queen and I haven't repotted that plant for 10 years because I've been scared. So anyway, I pull it out, I pull the root system out. And it just came right out. I was prepared for it to be attached to the pot and how Hoyas do, because they climb trees, so they have to have sticky roots that have root hairs that really dig into everything, like ivy and shit like that. Like fucking pothos, Jesus Christ. Or monsteras. Have you ever seen a monstera attach itself to a wall? It'll pull your paint off. Be careful. But also, let it do it because it's really easy to spackle and paint because it's really cool. I don't think they dig into drywall. Pothos will. Monsteras might, but I don't think they would unless there was moisture in there. And if there's moisture in your drywall, you have a bigger problem. So anyways, but if it's concrete, like raw concrete, exposed concrete or brick or something like that, mortar, then that can be it'll absorb moisture out of the air, so you don't want to let your monsteras grow up that, get a moss pole or some shit, because it will burrow into that, and that can cause some major structural issues. And also, I'm not telling you, don't sue me because you're well, Veronica said to let my monstera grow into my drywall. I'm not telling you to do that, not really. I just think it's cool. But their roots are so grippy. But this avocado tree does not have grippy roots because it's not a climber. It just needs to go into the ground. And so it forms a mat instead because it is super thirsty. And this is why avocados are so expensive, is because they're grown in California where droughts are really common. And I know they're grown other places too, but they're grown in drier climates and they're fucking thirsty as shit. So welcome to the problem. When rainfall is scarcer and scarcer and the snowpack is scarcer. Anyway, so this plant had this mat of fibrous roots up at the top. It had the tap roots down below, kind of twirling around, and it wasn't rooted to the pot, and it just came right out. So number one, that's a really good thing because I didn't have to rip its root system apart to get out of this pot. I didn't have to break the pot. I didn't have to detach the pot from the roots or anything like that. Really good signs for less stress during the repot, so I was very pleased about that. So then the next step is to get as much of the old soil off as possible so I can replace it with new soil, right? And with that, a lot of people will rip the root system apart and blah, 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 and I'm just it hurts my heart to see that happening. Now, I do have a monstera over here that I removed probably 2/3 to 3/4 of the root system from because I literally could not get the old soil out to replace with fresh soil. And I mean, like the root ball was like the entire pot. And we're talking about a 12-inch wide, like 16-inch tall nursery pot that was just like, maybe 1/3 soil, 2/3 root mass. I'm like, you don't need that, my friend. And so I also actually chopped it all up because the stems were really, really long and I wanted a fuller, bushier plant. So I chopped it all up and I removed a lot of its root system, and now it's going to be able to regrow because these, again, they're very aggressive rooters, and so it'll regrow just fine. And but with this avocado, I really didn't want to do that because the root system was just enough to like support the tree itself. Hang on. Sorry, I've got like a frog going on in my throat here. So the avocado tree, I take it outside. Of course, I'm outside already with it, doing all this soil mess. And I pulled the root ball out. And the first thing I did before I disturbed the roots was to clean out the nursery pot, or the stoneware pot, and, hose it out, hose the outside off because there was dust on it and cobwebs, because that's the way we do in this house sometimes, especially when things have been sitting in the laundry room all summer waiting for a repot. And so I cleaned the pot first instead of disrupting the roots more and then leaving it sit while I mess with other things. And then I cut a pot to size to fit inside of that pot. So now it's in a nursery pot that has straight sides. So the next repot is going to be much easier and like less invasive. And I made sure it fit, and I cut this pot down. I had to find one and like, shape it to the right size to fit inside this other container because I didn't have the right size pot. And so I did all of that first while the avocado tree is just sitting in my repotting tub, like my used soil tub. It's just sitting there with its root ball intact without the roots really having been messed with at all. And so then after I'm all prepared for everything, and I found a saucer and all of it, like I got it all set up, then I went and I took my hose. And so this is the real key. I took a spray from my hose outside and I sprayed off whatever soil would come off without being too aggressive, but, being semi-thorough, because I do want new soil. I want fresh soil all around that root ball and like tucked up in there. And the soil mix that I have I used it for all of my plants, and I think I mentioned in the last podcast that I'm probably going to make it available. This mix, it's really great. I really like it. It drains well. It holds a lot of water. It's my set it and forget it mix. And honestly, I adapt it a little bit every single time I make it. And this is probably iteration number 10. Every time I make soil for my own plants, like if I'm repotting one plant, like if I bring home a new whatever, then I'll just use the soil that I sell for that specific plant. But if I'm repotting a whole bunch of my own plants, then I'll make one type. And occasionally, like I repotted what is it? The giant penis plant, Amorphophallus titanium, the Titan arum, or is it arum or arum? I think it's arum. The one that blooms like every 10 years and it like really stinks. And they have them in like giant botanical greenhouse garden things. So I have one of those. It's a little baby. And I got it, I think was it the Amazon Spheres plant sale or something up in Seattle? But really cool plant. It has some variegation going on the foliage, which I was not expecting. And it has, like when I first got it, it was solid, and then the whole top died. And I'm like, okay, this is normal. It's going dormant. Don't worry, Veronica. Don't worry. And so then I kept it like, I'm just like trusting that there's a little potato down in there that's going to do with, like when you're just like, oh, hold your breath and trust. And then like a few months later, it starts doing its thing again. And I'm like, oh, thank God. And then it died again and came back and like the top dies and then sprouts up. And it has to do this, like, I think it's supposed to do it every year, but then during the time, well, maybe it died down there too. Maybe that was the second one. And then it resprouted And then it took it 2 years before it went dormant again. And maybe it was because I put it in the dark in the laundry room because it needed a repot. It was like on my dryer for a while. Maybe it went dry enough and was in the dark. I know there's a way. I haven't looked it up. Maybe I did 3-4 years ago. But there's a way to induce dormancy in these plants. But you want them to be photosynthesizing and growing for long enough to really build that underground potato, to build up its stores again. And so the thing died off, and then I was like, and then I set it on the back porch because I'm like, okay, well, there's nothing green coming out of this pot anymore, so let me just put it outside and we'll deal with it later, and I love this little plant. It's so cool. There are plants that are prettier maybe, but it's just such a neat thing. And so then I went to repot it yesterday, and with that one, it was planted in a mix of bark and perlite mainly. I don't think there's much else in there. Maybe some slow-release fertilizer. I don't know what they used. But it was in its original container. And I just use a liquid fertilizer, so I'm like, whatever. And I don't want it to stay too wet. But when I repotted it, I mixed in about half to 2/3 of its original substrate, and then the remainder was my new mix. So I will adjust a little bit if I make one mix, and I know that there's if I was planting lithops or something like that, then I would use mostly pumice and then just a little bit of whatever stuff that I use, probably 7/8 pumice and then 1/8 of the mix that I created. So there's definitely a few plants that I will adapt, the soil to them. But even Sansevieras, it's like a Sansevieria is a glorious thing. Jade plants, I put them in the straight mix that I use for my tropicals because then you can just ignore it. You got to remember to ignore that one when you're watering. Be like, oh yeah, that guy doesn't want any water this time. So this is why I tell people to check their plants. Okay, back to the avocado. So we're at the point when the pot is cleaned out, everything is prepped. I am repotting it. So take your hose and spray the shit off. And then I was talking about the mix. Sorry, I'm very discombobulated. I feel like this is normal for this podcast, but anyway. So the mix has enough fine particles that I actually didn't use any large bark. I only used the fine bark. And then I used cocoa chips and charcoal and all the other things that I use. But and of course all the tasties. And so the cocoa chips are the biggest chunk in this. The cocoa chips and then some of the charcoal chunks, because the charcoal that I'm using is a nice medium to small texture. Not super fine, but it's kind of like a small medium. So the bark can filter in. If you scoop a few little scoops, put a few handfuls in the root ball area, and then just kind of tap the side of the pot with any plant if you've cleaned off the root ball. And with this avocado, excuse me, the roots were so well packed that I did not hose it out really thoroughly. So let me just say that I was scared. I was scared of the whole thing losing all of its leaves. I was scared of killing it entirely. This is a baby plant, so we're going to be really, really cautious with it. I was not a totally cavalier or anything with all these other plants. I'm just like, you'll live, And with some of the begonias, they're like, am I really going to live? And I'm like, damn it. But they the tuberous ones will, sometimes they die back to their tuber with a really, really radical repot. And then they sprout up again because the tuber is what, that's where it holds its energy juice. This is the technical term for what's happening here. I'm very scientific. So with this avocado, I was not super serious about cleaning out all of the soil, but that's because there was just this fibrous mat of roots that I really wanted to preserve. And so then I make a nice little bed of soil in there. I put it in, and then I put soil in around the edges, and then I tap the pot to make sure that soil filters down, like all the fine particles filter down within the root system to kind of incorporate within those roots. And then I put more on top, and then I tap the pot a bunch more and like kind of shake it around a little bit, just gently. But what I'm trying to do is get the soil to kind of infiltrate between those little crevices in the root pockets. And it doesn't have to completely. When you water, it's going to wash more into those areas too. And then also it's going to leave space for air down there if it doesn't fill up completely, which is also good. So that's what I did. And then I put it in my house and I watered it. Watering right away after a repot is important. Also, make sure that the plant is not sitting in water. You want to water thoroughly so all of the soil is damp, because if you have like a dry area, then the plant might be shocked and then might be like, what the hell? And then will like kill off some roots or something like that potentially. But the hose method also works to hydrate those roots as you're repotting. So even if it was like slightly damp and you didn't hydrate the roots really well, what water does is it tells the plants like, hey, it's a good idea to grow roots here. If you have dry soil, the plant is not going to go grow roots there because water is going to trigger that growth, because they're looking for it. You know, if you've ever seen a vining plant, like, you know, I'm talking about pothos again, but any vining plant, I mean, monsteras will reach into its neighbor pot and be like, oh, you have some more water, I'll take that too, you know, greedy little fucks. But pothos will go looking for a puddle. And this is why they fire leaves instead of stopping their growth. Like a pothos plant at a time of drought won't stop growing forward, and instead will just fire leaves along the stem, because it's like, well, if it's dry over here, we better go find a new place to get water from, you know, and they'll go actively looking for a puddle so that they can keep growing. And that's why they fire the leaves. They're like, whatever, these leaves are dead to me, because they'll just root as they go. And sorry, my brain stopped for a minute. It was like, where were we going with this? So then if they find a puddle, that's where they put the root down, right? So they might root up a tree as they grow up a tree or something like that, but they're going to do a much more thorough job of sending a root out if there's moisture there. And so that's why you don't want to repot a plant into like semi-dry soil. Oh, and this only works if the soil is somewhat dry. Like on the dry side, when you repot, the filter, like the tapping and you know, making, if it's really soggy and like clumping together, it won't sift into those little areas between the roots. Just FYI. What's next? So yeah, you want to water thoroughly. You don't want to repot a plant and then leave it in dry soil overnight or something like that. That is a recipe for sad. So I think that's it. If I missed things, I'm sorry. I'm not, like, I don't know what it is. But the avocado tree is happy. This is what I am here to report, is that I have a repotted and happy avocado. Shock would have set in by now. With an avocado, I mean, the one that got all freaked out at my last job happened within an hour or two. It was like, oh, we hate this. Like, zoom, all the leaves just drooped. So that, yeah, I was watching it all night. But it actually is more perked up than it was before, because remember, it was a little bit very slightly dehydrated when I started the repot, which again, don't do that. But I did water it like now, and I gave it some time to soak some up. And I kept it very, very damp during the whole repot and did it quickly. You know, it took me 5 minutes start to finish. So that's a thing. Also, if you have a plant that you're scared about repotting, like I have this monstera here, I cleaned its root ball off, and I actually, you know, I took off half of its root ball, and then I was exhausted and didn't have enough soil mixed up, and so I left it in the pot, just the bare roots in the pot overnight, which is not something I recommend doing, and I just left it in my laundry room. And then the next day, I was like, okay, it's time to deal with this sucker. And so that's not something I recommend doing for any plant that might freak out about it. A monstera, they're pretty sturdy. Would I do it with your $200 Thai constellation that you've been growing for 3 years? No. But this is, I mean, I don't want to say I don't like it, because I do like it. It used to be Sean's favorite plant until I got the other one. I have this lemon lime maranta that is that was his favorite plant. He thought it was very, very cool. And that thing is a baby. I take care of that thing like you wouldn't believe. In terms of like the plant that actually got watered right after he died, it was that one. Couldn't water anybody else, but that one I was like, oh, keeping that one alive. Anyway, I think that's it. I was sitting down to do 10 minutes just to let you know that it's okay to be scared to repot something. And also I had a success, so let me share it with you. And here we are, almost an hour later, and this is just how it fucking goes with me, isn't it? Squirrel. Anyway, Drumstick doesn't know that word yet. He twitched his eyebrow when I said his name, but he doesn't know what squirrels are yet. But he knows what kitties are. Because we talk about how kitties are nice, and kitties are leave it. And kitties are no. We talk about that often. I'm not too worried about him actually getting a squirrel. They're very fast. But I don't want him to even go after cats, you know? Because sometimes cats hunker down and hiss. And then he gets like very excited. He's like, oh man, you're kind of like a dog and kind of like a squirrel and I don't know what to do with you. And I'm like, well, don't fucking eat it. So kitties are leave it. He knows that bunnies are leave it. He can walk past a bunny off leash and not go after it because he knows that I don't want him to. This dog is amazing. Like, to have that kind of prey drive and also that kind of I want to be good for mom. Whew, I don't know. I wish I had that kind of like respect for authority. And then also somebody telling me what to do. I just need a babysitter, you guys. Oh, Lord. Welcome to the ADHD. Sometimes I wish the autism was stronger so I would have like more of an inner babysitter. But we'll see. Anyway, I'm going to try to train you guys to expect things from me, like going live in the member site once a week or something like that. So you can get on my case if I don't. That would be helpful. So if you're not a part of the member site, members.ohhappyplants.online if you want to ask questions. And I really do want to be getting in there more often. I'm trying to set my life up so that I have less personal shit going on. Y'all have hung in there with me through these past couple of years of just complete tumult. And I really, really appreciate it. And I'm at a point where I want to be really focused on, you know, building the knowledge base, serving this glorious community of all of you, and really giving back again, because that's where I started, was sharing information like hardcore. And the fact that I can do this and make a living is incredible, you know, and the fact that I had a job that I could do like this, that could carry me through all of the various hell that I've been through in the past 2 years, you know, that I could scale back. And, you know, for a while I was doing very, very bare minimum in terms of just like trying to fill orders as much as I could, but being late on everything. And you guys supported me through all of that. And it's just been such a gift. So I really appreciate every single person who has hung in there with me through this whole giant thing. And also everybody who's new to the podcast. It's just been so incredible, this whole community. And welcome if you're new. I hope it's useful. And again, members.ohhappyplants.online if you want to get more information. And there's also a searchable by keyword archive of most of the podcasts. I do need to get in there and update it. I think it's I can't remember if I got up to like episode 200 with the ones that I put in there or what, but it's not all of them yet. It's most of them. And so I will get in there and add more to that at some point here. One day, I'm going to have a virtual assistant or a non-virtual assistant to help me out with this shit, because I really do need help. Somebody who's super techie and does a lot of social media, and it would be ideal if they were here in Tacoma, because that would just be better. Because then I could, like, you know, record 10 different reels on an extra cell phone and just hand it to somebody and be like, hey, will you deal with this for me? Because I don't post this shit. I'm not good at it. It's just extra stuff to do. I'm trying. Anyway, y'all are fabulous. If you need dirt, ohhappyplants.shop. If you need information, members.ohhappyplants.online or this podcast. And what else? Oh, I think I've mentioned, but just in case, here's a plug for Ohio Tropics. Raphael put out an orchid course, and I don't know if it's closed for people to join now, or if it's just, if he said it so you can join whenever, but it's a higher price. I don't know. I think he and I are going to work out some kind of affiliate relationship where I can get you a discount eventually. But check out his course, because he knows orchids, and we're working on some pretty exciting stuff behind the scenes. So, and I'm actually going to have an orchid and epiphyte soil guide coming out soon. I think there's some information on epiphytes in the existing soil guide. And the orchid one is going to be much cheaper because it's for a very specific subset of plants. It's not like a general thing, but it does teach you a lot of the same information in terms of, you know, think about how you water, like the same information that I put out here, it's just in a PDF. And then it has some recipe suggestions on there too. So that will be available as soon as he and I figure this other stuff out. And I think that's where the code is going to be for his orchid course, probably. Maybe. But I'll be putting that out in the member site too, in terms of getting you guys more information, because like I said, he really, and like all the stuff he teaches about orchids is like, everything that I've seen from him is very spot on in terms of the things that I know about orchids. Like, I learned so much about about these plants because we used them so much, especially the Phalaenopsis orchids, but I'm learning more about these other types too. And I think a lot of people are intimidated by them, but they don't have to be intimidating. And also, if you don't have a Clivia miniata, people call it Clivia. That's wrong. This is one I do know how to pronounce. So it's Clivia miniata, because it's named after Lady Clive. It can't be named after Lady Clive and be called Clivia. That's not what it is. So, so if you don't have one of these, they're freaking fantastic. I love them. Mine's blooming again. It just keeps doing it. And I'm like, oh, is this what happens when you fertilize? So, by the way, fertilize your shit. Oh, man, that's what we're going to leave you with. Have a great day, you guys. Happy September.